So episode 4, finally, the red fucking Heifer. This is not going to be a good one. I know I keep saying that, but it keeps getting more and more true. So today's episode is a little bit weird. The purpose is not what you think. The purpose is to explain to you or to show you how chaos magic is used. What they do is they invert, pervert truth, narratives, the Bible, and they offset it against an opponent, which is also a perversion of some truth as well. And before we know it, we are caught between Jews looking at fucking cows in Texas to find that perfect fucking red cow, and all of these noticers are focusing on that fucking cow in Texas, thinking it fucking makes any difference whatsoever to any revelation prophecy. When the whole thing is a lie, it was never about a fucking cow. The version of the Bible that the noticers are trying to protect is a kosher version of the Bible. And they're using a kosher version of the Bible to attack, diminish, subdue Jewish prophecy of the red heifer, which is also a lie. So there's two lies fighting each other, and we're stuck between doing what, right? Okay, so this is going to be a hard episode. It's going to be just the first of many. This topic of the original Greek Bible changed my whole outlook on just about everything. And I'm going to start picking at this in as many episodes as I can because it's a huge subject. But it's all a lie. What else is new? Color me shocked. Everything he told us is a lie. What people don't usually gather is that the solutions are also lies, even if they're wrapped in Jesus, in Yeshua. Yeshua. If you guys knew what the fuck Yeshu means as an acronym in fucking Hebrew, you'd never call Jesus Yeshua ever the fuck again. Just to show you how messed up the whole Hebrew roots nonsense is, right? So look, it's going to be a hard conversation. Remember, this is where lies come to die. But unfortunately, in order for lies to die, sometimes a piece of ourselves needs to die in the process. It's not going to be easy, but that's what we're here for, right? To slay the hope here, to slay the false hopes that are leading us straight into the beast system. So, without further ado, sub, like, comment, do fucking something. Stop, just fucking do it already. I don't want to keep telling you guys every episode, I just fucking do it. And then I'll stop being a prick about it too. So now we're in the little intermission before we start talking about some crazy shit, right? We're going to try to laugh, but I'm also going to try to double down on how I believe what I explained in episode 1 and 2 is pertinent to being able to figure out who's fucking with you, right? And we spoke about a bunch of characters, including Ian Carroll, and I'll do so a follow-up in this little segment. But before we do so, fuck BB, right? Just want to say that all clearly. This guy's human scum. I find it hilarious. You have to enjoy sometimes the little things. Watching Trump quintuple the fuck down on fighting anti-Semitism, while his base cheers for a non-existent rift with Israel, is some of the funniest and most impressive mental gymnastics you'll ever get to see in the circus that we call life. So it's always nice to take a moment and just laugh it out, guys. Because really, if they take our humor and our happiness away from us, we're fucked. Never let this bullshit you're seeing on TV, on the internet, fuck with your happiness, guys. Because then you've already lost. There's nothing to win if you're not fucking happy. Okay? So keep that in the back of your mind. Fell for it again award. Oh, man. Look at this fucking thing in the corner. Holy shit. Look at this fucking chosenite. Holy moly. Some ugly Master Splinter looking motherfuckers like Schmolly. Anyways. Yeah, that was bullshit. So, what to say? I keep looking at this meme and I'm disgusted. Anyways, so let's go to the Pope, right? So I had predicted that the Pope would be a fucking pedophile. How, you know, that's an easy prediction. Don't get me wrong. And if you want to know why, well, as a bishop in Peru, multiple women accused two priests of child, you know what? Our new Pope, Leo the 14th, not only took it upon himself to handle these cases personally, but he also helped bury them. The survivors and the victims of survivors then posted a more formal complaint to the Vatican. And what ended up happening is they got a settlement of a couple $1 million. So this is just one case of many, just an FYI. But why I brought up the Pope is for another reason, which maybe I fucked up here. Okay, yeah. So what's going on with the Pope? And I think this kind of ties in with Donald's golden shower dome, right? That he's building to ward off space lasers, as they say. This is all the great deception. These are all pieces to a possible great deception, which will include an extraterrestrial force for us to unite against, right? So the Pope, Louis XIV, and UFOs. So what's very interesting is that back in 2002 or 3, there was a short film titled The Lion of St. Mark. It featured a fictional pope named, you guessed it, Louis the XIV. And at some point in the short story, a UFO arrives and the Pope weeps, he cries, and he declares, that thing out there looks like a craft from another world because it is. And it has come to the Pope's kingdom because it is the kingdom of the Pope. Do you see what the fuck's going on here? Do you see the setup at all? Leo equals lion, kingship, dominion, divine authority. Saint Mark was an evangelist, a herald, a messenger. And UFO is a cosmic intervention, a great deception. Is it is all this a coincidence or just ritual? Are we watching the beast system crown its cosmic spokesperson? Not just the ruler of earth souls, but the gatekeeper to the skies that's going to transmute the fallen angels into our savior extraterrestrials. This will be an interesting topic. And I'm going to get into the great deception at some point because I have an interesting theory about that, which is a little bit different than most, and how I believe that there will be a blue beam type disclosure or contact, but how it's all going to be a sham. And even the counter to that will be a sham. And, what else is new again? That everything the fuck is bullshit. What's next? Oh, yeah. So before I get into the Ian Carroll thing, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm pretty sure I was the one that first broke out with X-22 report being skull and bones symbolic, right? So I just wanted to point that out because the whole 322 skull and bones, the Yale Brotherhood of Death, is very pertinent when it comes to Ian Carroll. I'm going to give you some backstory because it's funny, but it's also interesting. Right? Like, I've been doing this a while. I exposed him pretty fucking well a couple of weeks ago, but I did it in a way that gives him an out. And I did that for him to be able to respond. And I think I did it so properly that he followed me as a result of that, by the way. And we kind of have like this funny bromance going on. But always remember, no matter what you read or how I talk to certain people online, try to maintain that my intentions are always to crush lies. Okay, no matter what I say or what you read or misread, And I'm going to prove it here again, right? So what happened with Ian is very interesting. He just so the fuck happened that on the first day that he replaces Candace Owens on her show, he decided to wear a red fucking string around his hand that was gifted by his girlfriend's dad. Apparently, this is why, he had to counter and explain it away. When I first saw this post, which was here, this was episode 1, this was episode 2. I framed the question to him in a way because I know where they're going with all this, right? I asked him if the feed of the videos were mirrored. And I'm sure that seems very weird to people, but obviously I could see on episode 2 that his shirt reads Seek. So I knew it wasn't fucking mirror. So why did I ask that? I think I was the only person that realized that his Kabbalah string, which it is a Kabbalah string, by the way, it is, no matter what he says, was on the right hand, not the left. See, everybody saw this and runs for the clout. Oh, Ian Carroll's wearing a Kabbalah string, blah, blah, blah. That's not enough, guys. See, what they do is they disclose allegiances, they broadcast it in a way that also gives them an out to the normies. So I knew he wore it on the right hand with intent to do so, to be asked about it, and then to prove that, not only is it not what you guys think it is, but it's not even on the hand that it's supposed to be on. So he's eliminating dissent and doubt, while at the same time broadcasting to whoever he needs to that he's doing what he's told to do at the same fucking time, right? So he posted this to prove that it's not a Kabbalah string. What are the odds that he posts and the time on his watch is 2:23? See, I asked about the mirror thing initially because I know how these people work. When you mirror that 2:23, what does it give you? It gives you the 3:22 skull and bones symbolism. Now, most people, again, took that and went off with it, which I understand, right? Like, that's good enough to go fucking hunting for assholes. But there's more to this than all of that. And I knew this going in. This is what bothers me, right? So I knew all of this going in, and I'm going to explain it to you after I go into this little bit. So tell me, what are the odds of this? On the day that Ian debuts as Candace Owens fill-in, that day is exactly 218 days after Yale's birthday, which is October 9th. Yale's kind of skull and bones, right? His prior big break was on Joe Rogan, which also happens to fall 218 days before Yale's next birthday. And the best part of all of that is that he posted his episode 1 on that day at 2:18 p.m. What are the fucking odds of that? So he posts that he's replacing Candace Owens at 2:18 p.m., which also happens to be 218 days after Yale's birthday. And his Joe Rogan appearance was also 200 days before Yale's next birthday. The odds of this are astra-fucking-nomical, right? But it gets crazier, guys. That's the thing. So when I first went at him, I did this post up here. I know it's a little bit hard to see, but I got a lot of traction. He responded to me twice. See, I know where I'm going with these guys. I write things in a way to position them to have to give certain types of outs, right? And he says this, read very, very clearly, never torches Teal or Palantir, because that was one of my grievances with him. And another response he wrote here Bro, the Gematria. What's interesting is that first post I did exposing him, in one of the images here, I write how a lot of his name and or spellings of equals 322. Again, the Brotherhood of Death, right? It's just interesting how that happens. But what's funny is that I never mentioned that to him. I never wrote it out. It was just one small part of one of the memes. Yet he decided that's the first thing he would have to criticize on my post. So he had to criticize all those weeks ago the 322 references in my posts that predate this whole mirrored watch 322, right? This is why I wish fucking people let me handle these situations, because I don't want to talk like I'm full of myself, but as you could see that I've proved to you, I'm fucking 10 steps ahead of everybody. The way I'm writing, the way I'm writing everything in a way that I know where the fuck they need to go, and I'm trying to use that against it, right? But what's interesting is that this gets a little bit deeper and a little bit the fuck crazier. So Never Torches Peter Thiel, the reptile. What I meant by that is not that he doesn't talk about fucking Palantir and that kind of shit. Everybody needs to do that. What I meant is that Peter Thiel is directly connected to Glorify, which Candace Owens was the face of. It's a Rothschild-backed fintech shaya wrapped in American flags and anti-woke bullshit. Maha territory, basically, right? And that's what I meant where he refuses to look into Thiel, because it directly relates to Candace, which directly now relates to him. But the 322 symbolism doesn't just end there either. That's the thing that's even more fucked. So Candace Owens posted about being baptized on April 22nd, 2024, as you can see right here. Look at the time where she posted that she was baptized. 3:22 p.m. How weird is that? Remember when Candace Owens got canned by nasally prick Shapiro? Do you know what date that happened on? It happened on March 22nd, which is the third month. 3:22. Once again. How much 3:22 symbolism do you guys need to understand that all of this whole fucking thing cannot be a coincidence, and that it's governed by Kabbalistic ritual? That's how you see through it. Crazy, isn't it? Let's move a little bit more to 3:22, right? So, fucking Mariah Carey, another lunatic. Complete fucking lunatic. Her sister, forgot her name, Patricia, no, it was a mom, Allison. Allison was like a whistleblower of sorts, which my philosophy is even the whistleblowers are always MK Ultra to hell and involved in the process of disclosure. They're a tool to win our hearts. So, Mariah Carey had to pay the piper, right? Both her mom, Patricia, and Allison died on August 26, 2024. Now, what are the odds that both her sister and her mom die 322 years and 322 days after the founding of Yale? I don't know what the odds are, but it fucking happened. Once again. Crazy. So about Gematria, that's the thing about Gematria. It doesn't matter what the fuck you think. It's the Jewish calculator. I fucking get it. But this is what these people use as a tool to dictate what will happen. Gematria people tell me, Trump is using that to mock them, for example, right? This is an impossibility, and I'll explain to you why. The purpose of Gematria is to make or to give numerical values to names, places, dates, and things, right? That's the fucking purpose of it. So when they're connecting names, places, dates, and things based on predetermined values, they are, in a sense, by playing it out, acting as God. They are creating reality in real time, playing God. You don't do something like that to mock evil. Evil does that to control and mock you. And let's take the fucking coincidence level up craziness, right? We're going to talk a little bit about Donald Trump. I'm going to do many episodes on him because I have done a lot of work on this guy, right? So, and like I said, it doesn't matter what you think. What you think is irrelevant. It's what these fuckers, these controllers, these parasites on whatever levels they are, it's what they think. So Donald Trump was christened the Messiah, son of David, by, I don't remember that group of 120 rabbis, which dictate this prophecy, right? So he's their Messiah, son of David. And when you take that word and you transcribe it into Hebrew Gematria, it gives 424. What's interesting is that if you take the name, I'm trying to show you here, I should have it here. So when you take the name Donald J. Trump, written in Hebrew, if you use that same cipher, it also gives 424. Strange, but why the fuck does this matter? I'll tell you why it matters, because they will manipulate reality to confirm their prophecy that he is that Messiah. And how did they do that? We'll explain to you how they did that. So Donald J. Trump is the only president in American history to visit the Wailing Wall while president. Everybody else visited it too, and they humped that shit too. Don't get me wrong. But they did it either before their presidency and or after, not during. Why is this relevant? Well, I'm going to show you a little video here of Donald J. Trump walking up to the wall. And I want you guys to take and pay particular the fuck attention to the time up here in Jerusalem as this is happening. And look at just look at what's about to take place.
Here, which is also notable, as he walks by himself up to the Western Wall. Let's listen.
It's a solemn moment for a sitting U.S. president to honor the world for Judaism, for Jews. It is a fraught gesture because while it's very important for Jews, it's also very important for Israelis that the president is being seen.
Saudi Arabia.
Did you see that? And what's crazy, look, I'm just going to play the first part again before I start talking. Just look how he pauses for like a fraction of a fucking second. And because of that, the timing is just watch.
Here, which is also notable, as he walks by himself up to the Western Wall.
Is that fucked? What just happened here, guys? They created prophecy in real time, is what happened here. And it's all fucking bullshit. Every part of it. Crazy, huh? Is there anything I wanted to say? Yeah, well, so I'm going to get into the whole red Heifer thing. And I specifically went into the Gematria and the biblical prophecy engineering because it fits into everything we're going to talk about with the red heifer, how we're all using kosher manipulated versions of scripture to identify and expose evils that are they themselves perversions of truth. And this is chaos magic, guys. Welcome to Bullshit 101. Hello once again. So, the red fucking Heifer. This one's going to be quite the segment. Let me just say that. But before, I watched the last segment and I realized I'm a retard. About the Trump thing with the 424 on the wall, I just forgot to clarify something. The fact that his name and Messiah ben David equal 424 in Gematria is not my claim. It's not something that I am saying. It's Rabbi Yosef Berger, who is apparently a descendant of King David, who makes these claims in the articles in the video here. So I just wanted to clarify that these are not my claims. I'm not saying that his name equals the value of 424 or that the Messiah ben David does. I'm saying that rabbis believe that, and that when he went to the wall, they orchestrated that entire event like I spoke about. So I just wanted to clarify that because I'm a retard, right? So the red heifer. This is going to be an introduction video into the kosherization of the Bible, right? I'm going to give you a couple reasons as to why I believe the whole Hebrew roots thing is complete nonsense, right? The two major evidences for a Hebrew Bible first are the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Kitef Henam scroll, which is a silver coin, right? So about the Dead Sea Scrolls, they were found in 1947, which is the same year that Israel became Israel. So for me, that's like, how funny is that, right? What kind of a coincidence is that? Some kid threw a fucking rock in the desert, and the rock happened to go into one of the hundreds of caves that are there. And, you know, the whole story is anyways, right? But what's interesting is that the Dead Sea Scrolls belonged to the sect of Qumran. And who or what is the sect of Qumran? Well, it's a group of castrated celibate freaks who thought the Pharisees were too moderate. I'll repeat. A bunch of celibate freaks, a group of men that are castrated and celibate that live in the fucking desert, who were writing letters to the Pharisees, or the synagogue of Bagels. And in their letters, they were telling the Pharisees that they are too moderate with their Judaism. Can you imagine how mentally retarded these people are if they think the Pharisees are too moderate? So keep that in the back of your mind, right? What they don't seem to tell you is that there was also about 900 scrolls that were found total in the cave. And not only that, every single Hebrew scroll was found in the same cave in Greek in complete versions of the text. Meaning that, for example, they found Daniel in the cave, but they also found the Septuagint Greek version of Daniel, which has an extra couple chapters in it. So tell me again how this proves that anything was Hebrew first, right? And then we have that silver coin, which has two, it was found in the 5th or 6th centuries, and it has two verses on it, right? And when you read the verses, like, look, I'm going to go over this in particular in another video, but I just need to give you the background before I start talking about the Heifer, right? So on that coin, there are two verses. And when you read them, you have to understand that these are prayers, right? So when you read the prayers on the coin, and then they say, yes, those were the original Psalms 22:1 and 22:2. So if you go to read Psalms 21:1 and 21:2, and you read what's on the coin, you'll be like, it's kind of similar-ish. You know, I mean, it's a prayer. It's bound to be somewhat similar. But what did these rabbis and these biblical scholars do? Because they found two sentences that kind of maybe sound like Psalms 21:1 and 2, they said that, hey, all of Psalms was written in Hebrew first because it was partly written on a coin. What kind of logic is that? So you find two sentences that kind of maybe sound like two sentences in Psalms. So that gives you enough evidence to confirm with authority that Psalms and the entire Bible was written in Hebrew first based on that evidence. This is insane thinking, guys. Like, I don't know what, I don't know how they came to this conclusion, but I smell Jewry, obviously, right? So, all right. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Heifer. So what did they do, right? They lied about everything. Again, surprise, surprise. They forged it. They plagiarized it. They ripped it straight from the Hellenes. And they had the audacity to think that they could pass it off as their own with a simplistic language like Hebrew with barely 8,000 unique words. This is laughable, guys. Every single translation viewed through the Greek lens, the Greek translation, doesn't only make more sense. It elevates the entire narrative, adding depth, nuance, and actual meaning to the text that you can pass along the entire book, and it all coincides. Meanwhile, reading it in Hebrew feels like a skimmed and dumbed down version of a children's book. It's flat, it's shallow, it's incoherent at times, and it's much more literal and much more dark as a result, right? You can't grasp the Bible through Hebrew roots nonsense. And that's exactly why they lied about it all. Before we get into it, specifically the red heifer thing, I want to explain from another level, right, of how translations work. And one, Bibles are studied by biblical scholars, not linguists. Biblical scholars don't read anything else outside the Bible. So their Greek is limited to the context of the Bible, when most of the words used are predecessors that came from playwrights and other sources. The original meanings predate what was written in the Bible. And another way to look at it is this, right? So Hebrew has about 8,000 unique words. Ancient Greek has, they don't even know, anywhere between 500,000 to 1.5 million words. What does that mean? That means that there's so many shades of meaning. We have like 7 or 8 words for love. We have about a dozen words for different states of consciousness. So I'll give you one example of how this was altered, right? So in the garden, it's really funny because in the Greek version, the garden is called the garden of pleasure. They actually completely removed that term from the English and Hebrew roots versions, which is interesting. But what I wanted to say is that at some point in the Bible, God puts Adam to sleep, right? And what's interesting is that when you read it in the Septuagint, it doesn't say that. It says God put Adam in a state of ecstasy. Ecstasy, not sleep. So what the fuck happened here? How does the Greek version say ecstasy? And how does the Hebrew and or English version say sleep? I'll explain to you how that happens. Translations can only match meaning or dilute it. You can't add meaning. You can't take a kid's book, for example, and create a fucking quantum physics book. But you can't take quantum physics and write it into a child's book and give it meaning. You could do the opposite, right? You see, in Hebrew, there's no word for ecstasy, none whatsoever. So if you were to go down in the Greek translations of those states, you would start with ecstasy and you would move down, and about 10 levels down would be the word sleep. In Hebrew, there's no word that adequately describes any state above sleep. So they had to downsize and agree to a meaning that is lower in the echelon of meanings, which is the highest capacity of the language used to translate, which was Hebrew, which was sleep. I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm going to try to push that with different ideas to show you how, okay, so let's look at it the other way around, right? So you're telling me that 72 rabbis read and God put Adam to sleep. And when they translated it to Greek, because apparently it was Hebrew first, you're telling me that all the 72 rabbis, for some reason, agreed to the word ecstasy in Greek, when in Hebrew it wrote sleep. Why would they all agree, and how would they all agree to pick ecstasy of all words to agree on? You see, that makes no sense. But the complete opposite makes perfect sense. There's ecstasy, and then what's the closest linking Hebrew word to anything that resembles ecstasy? Well, it's sleep. So they all agreed with the lowest common denominator. Logically thinking, this makes perfect the fuck sense, right? So the red heifer, what's going on with the red heifer? In the Septuagint, the phrase used for red heifer in Numbers 19:2, I believe, is Damalin Piran, which is right here. Damalin Piran. Damalis means heifer or young cow. Piros or Piran means red, which comes from pyre, which is fire, right? So it indicates a fiery red. So in the Greek Septuagint, the malis piran is a red heifer, which aligns with the Hebrew, whatever the word they use for the red heifer. But here is the thing. The Greek word for the malis can mean heifer, but it can also mean, in cases that predate the Bible, it was used to refer to a girl, a priestess. In ancient Greek literature, in Epicurus, for example, the malis describes a young woman, particularly one who is associated with the sacred rites. And the color red, in that context, pir, represents sacrifice. And I'll show you some of that here, right? I'll use the actual lexicon. See, a girl in Epicurus. I'm not making it up. It's right here in the lexicon, the malus, a girl, Epicurus. And if you use any kind of AI to ask, what does the malis mean? It will specifically tell you, because of Epicurus, that it's a girl who's initiated into the rites. A girl, a priestess, and the word in Greek priestess is interchangeable with prostitute, because they are prostitute priestesses. So when Jesus is walking around with prostitutes, how sure are you that he's walking around with what you believe to be prostitutes and or priestesses, which changes everything, right? See, so the ancient Greek lexicon has more words that start with the letter A than English, Hebrew, French, Aramaic, the languages combined. Greek is hyper-technical, layered, nuanced. Meanings span pages, guys. Like I'm going to show you later, like some words are like 3-4 paragraphs of meaning. Even within Greek, there's tiered structure of complexity with simpler words that eventually match up with more basic Hebrew equivalents, right? So in Greek, there is a word for a heifer that exists. Why would the rabbis not pick that word that specifically means heifer? Why would they pick a word that also means a priestess girl? It makes no sense when you look at it that way. But what does make sense is that the original text was in Greek, and when they translated it into Hebrew, they removed all of the pharmakon, all of the mysteries, and all of the Hellenistic hermeticism out of the Bible by translating it into a dumbed down, simple language like Hebrew. And they did the same thing. That's what they did with hermeticism to make it into Kabbalah. They perverted the Hellenistic hermeticism, which could be Hellenistic / Egyptian, depending how you want to look at it. And they turned it into their own, a perverted version of hermeticism. And when I explain to you guys what the actual difference is between the two groups, you're not going to like that fucking answer at all, right? And what's interesting is that in another passage in the Bible, which escapes me right now, but Samson gets mad because somebody plowed his heifer. But think about it, right? Somebody plowed his heifer. Somebody plowed his virgin priestess, and that's why he got mad. So, how's that? We'll take it a little step further. Now it's going to start getting crazy. This is just one word, one passage, right? I could do this with pretty much every passage that you think you know about the Bible. In Revelations, the woman in red, the whore of Babylon, is not just a random harlot or prostitute / priestess / heifer. She's draped in purple and scarlet, dripping in gold and jewels, perched atop a scarlet beast, and clutching a golden cup overflowing with her filth and her fornication of abominations. Think divine priestess, right? The consecrated and sacred virgin with her not so holy cup. A vessel, right? A vessel for what? So I'm going to repeat one line and keep it in the back of your mind because it's going to blow your head in a couple of minutes, hopefully, right? So she's holding, remember, she's the whore of Babylon, the woman in red, is a red heifer, a sacrificial priestess. Okay? She's holding a cup of her filth and of her fornication. A cup of her filth and of her juices, basically. That's what the fuck they're saying, right? And what does Aphrodite have to do with any of this? Well, now we're going to get into the whole Eleusinian, Orphic, Dionysian, Orphic, Median cults, the Scythian, Pontic cults of ancient Greek, which Kabbalism is a perversion of. This is going to be a little bit of a hard one. I'm telling you right now, right? So, and if you notice here, look at Aphrodite. This is not Aphroditus. I want to clarify that it's Aphrodite. And she is center to the Dionysian mystery schools. Because just like all of these mystery schools, they have a death and resurrection story. And Aphrodite is center to this because she goes down to Hades and comes back. That's the death and resurrection myth or story of the Dionysian cults. But I don't know if you realize it, but if you look right here, Aphrodite has a penis. Aphrodite, right here, has a penis. So what in the living fuck is going on? I'm going to explain to you what's going on. This is what dark to light means. And this is what these two seemingly at odd factions that are supposedly exposing each other and fighting for world dominance, I'm going to explain to you the mystery school differences between them. Everybody's aware because the white light side exposes the adrenochrome drinking Kabbalists. It's part of the Great Deception, right? So I'm not going to talk too much about the adrenochrome version, but what they do is they traumatize and adrenalize the victim in the hopes that their blood and fluids get loaded with hormones and adrenaline. Then they bleed them or use their flows, let's just say, to ingest as a remedy as health, but also as an entheogen, which is a psychiatric drug that drives spiritual experiences and allows them to connect with whatever entities they connect with. Everybody's aware of what I just said. As a truther, everybody learns about that because they direct us, they point us in that direction. However, there's another version of this practice, which is considered the light magic's version of harvesting ambrosia, the nectar of the gods. And how do they do this? Well, they take a heifer, a priestess or priest or a castrated boy, really is the answer. And the reason why they do that is because a castrated boy's hormones are stable. And what they do, they use the priestess as, this is going to sound crazy, I'm telling you right now, as a temple, as a vessel to create ambrosia, but not in a traumatic way. What they do is they use pharmakon, they use drugs and entheogens. They call them Christs. They call them Christs. Modern medicine is starting to catch up with the fact that things like snake venom have very positive qualities to them. The problem, and the obvious problem, is that it could also fucking kill you, right? So in order for you to ingest enough of the positive elements, you'd have to take so much of the venom that you're going to die for sure. The venom's going to kill you before any of the good enzymes do anything. So they had concoctions for drugs, which included multiple snake venoms, frogs, shrooms, plants, all kinds of pharmakons. And there's recipes, and it's madness, right? They called them Christs. So they would enchrist or anoint the priest or priestess with these drugs, and their body would go into overload. And as that's happening, they would provide the antichrists to the priest, which are the antidotes, which minimize the harmful effects of those entheogens, venoms, and drugs. So what happens? The perfect temple of the virgin boy, which is a perfect body, is now loaded with venoms and drugs and poisons, but has enough antidotes to allow them to survive. So when this is going on, they milk and pull the flows and the tears and everything else out of the body of the vessel, which is the priest, and they use that as ambrosia, as adrenochrome. So basically you have the Kabbalistic version, which involves trauma, and you have the Median, Scythian, Orphic version, which involves a willing participant and drugs and antidotes. And if you think this sounds crazy, which it obviously the fuck does, right? I'm going to show you how what I'm saying is actually grammatically, linguistically correct. So if you go to Greek lexicon here, this lexicon Perseus is what everybody uses, guys. I'm not using some magical, this is what Oxford uses. This is what everybody that's a linguist specifically uses, not necessarily biblical scholars. And I'm going to show you why biblical scholars are wrong about everything as well, right? So if you were to go here Now write pharmakon. Pharmakon. See, pharmakon right here. So look, this is pharmakon. Look at what it means. Well, this is just one word. One word. Look at this. Just to show you the depth of meaning in Greek, right? So when you look at pharmakon, what is pharmakon? Fucking drugs, guys. That's what it's drugs. That's what pharmakon is. Pharmakia, pharmakon, pharmakos. All of these words have been removed. 95% of these words have been removed in the Masoretic text versions of the Bible. They've removed the word pharmakon pretty much altogether. But look what's interesting. So pharmakon means drugs. It also means a healing remedy, basically an antidote, right? An antichrist. And here's the proof of that. If you keep reading along here, look on the third line right here. Christon. Christon. Does that sound familiar to you? Christ's. And here, echriston, to anoint. So when you look at the word drugs, this would be the equivalent of you opening up an English dictionary, looking for the word drugs. And when you look, hey, what does drugs mean? It writes to Christ and to anoint. Like, what? What do you mean drugs is to Christ and to anoint? I mean drugs is to Christ and to anoint. So let's look at these words, what they mean. Christon. Christon, to be rubbed on, used as ointment. So Christon, Christos, is a drug application. It's to rub drugs on you, not oils, like they're trying to tell you to anoint somebody is to rub oils. No, that's not true, because in the word drugs, it's offered as a method of application. And if you want to take it a little step even crazier, ekriston. This is another application of drugs, rubbed in as an ointment. Tous ophthalmos. What the fuck does ophthalmos mean? Check this shit out. Ophthalmos. Eye. You know when you see fucked up movies like Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and he's talking about adrenochrome and he's putting that shit in his eye, and you're like, oh, these people are fucked? Well, to anoint somebody, the anointed one is somebody who rubbed drugs into his eyes. That's what the fuck the word means, guys. And I've proven it to you with the lexicon. It's not me making shit up. Ophthalmos' eye. And rubbing it in the eye is to anoint somebody. Is that crazy? And just to show you how they fuck with everything, look, if you were to take this word, lost here, obviously. Pharmakon. So if I were to take this word, for example, and I were to put it in any translator, I'll use a Google for now, just to give you an example. Look, this, apparently according to the lexicon, according to Greeks that wrote what the fuck this means to rub drugs into the eye. Okay? That's what the fuck it means. But when you put it into here, look what happens. It means fucking thank you. What do you mean it means fucking thank you? See, they've completely removed all of the mystery school linguistics from every translator and translated version of the Bible in existence. And unless you use the Greek lexicon while reading the Septuagint, no one the fuck is the wiser. So On one end, this is so crazy, right? But we're we're supposedly in a fight, right, of dark to light, and how we have all these evil adrenochrome drinking sickos. And then we have Team Trump, which is on the white light side, which is exposing them. But what if I were to tell you that the other team is taking castrated priestesses, filling them up to the gill with drugs and antidotes, and then harvesting the liquids from their bodies? Does that sound like good to you in any fucking way, shape, or form? Like, is this good? Is this what God and good and great, does any of that mimic any of that? Or are these just all mystery school sex blood magic that are perverted onto themselves and set against each other in a chaos magic ritual, and with us fighting, exposing them using kosher versions of the Bible that don't even say anything like we think it's actually fucking saying, guys? This is this is a very hard topic because it changes the fuck everything, right? And then I might end with one thing. And look, this is going to be a black pill, and I'm going to get hated for what I'm saying. Everybody's going to call me fucking Antichrist and all this shit. But I assure you, when I do a full episode on this, or two, it'll all circle back and come the fuck together. But there are certain things you must consider when reading the story of Christ, right? And I'll keep it simple, very the fuck simple. Jesus walked around with the disciples and prostitutes. Just that one line. We're just going to talk about that beforehand. But what if the real case was this? What if Jesus was walking around with a bunch of priestesses, not prostitutes? And secondly, when you think of the disciples, you think of the Last Supper, right? That painting. People usually envision the Leonardo version, right? And you see a bunch of dudes sitting down, and you notice that all of them have beards. But what's funny is that this is so fucked. The disciples were all 12 to 16 years old. All of them except for Paul. Paul, they say, might have been maybe 18 because he was priorly married. So Jesus is 30, 31, 32, 33 years old, and he's walking around with prostitutes and a bunch of young boys, Christing and anointing. What the fuck is going on, guys? What is going the fuck on? So I'm going to drop this subject for now because it's a hard one, man. Like this one, I'm going to tell you the truth. I come from a Greek Orthodox upbringing, right? And this doesn't necessarily, it takes a lot of context to explain myself, and I don't have the time to do this in this video. And I understand exactly how bad everything I said sounds, but I can prove everything I said is the truth with reality, not with what some scholar, some fucking rabbi, or some asshole's telling you what he understands is fucking, no. I'm telling you, this is what it says. And I could show you how to go check it the fuck yourself. So you can hate me for that, but I'm being honest with you. And I'm telling you, when I push further into this subject, you're going to see how every single passage, everything you thought you knew about the Bible is 100% incorrect. None of the ideas that we have in the Bible are actually what's written there. And when you take the Greek Septuagint and you use a lexicon to translate the words, your head will blow the fuck open. So, here's where lies come to die, and a fucking portion of ourselves definitely died along the fuck with it today, right? So, look, I'm sorry for that, but I'm telling you things will get better. Just let me do what I need to do. I need to, I'm trying my best to have everything connect together with all of the episodes and showing you proof of how what I'm saying can be applied in a logic manner that'll help you understand. But it's a rough fucking ride, guys. And there's going to be a lot of things that are going to be hard to fucking accept, but just, take my word for it. Well, not take my word for it, but at least just let me run my thought exercise. And I assure you guys that at some point or another, things will start making sense and you'll see things through a much different and better lens. So, hey guys, sorry I got a little fucking depressed. I forgot to tell you guys a couple of things. Fuck, it's really hard, man. It's not easy conversations for me either. Just want to let you guys know. So one thing I wanted to mention before I get into what I forgot, it's funny because like the Hebrew roots would have you believe that the Old Testament, the Bible was written in Hebrew, right? But look how funny this is. So everyone will agree that the Bible is a book of metaphors, right? It's a book of metaphors. There is no Hebrew word for metaphors. It doesn't exist. So you're telling me they wrote a book of metaphors without having a term to describe what the fuck a metaphor is. Like this is what I mean. The Hebrew language is, just a brute, dumb, don't believe what they say. They try to make it beautiful, complex. Not only does it sound disgusting, it's primitive and simple. Do not believe any of that. So back to the craziness, right? So as I was saying with the whore of Babylon, right? Holding a golden cup with her fornications. So what they were doing, they were fucking this crazy. So they were Christing and antichristing the priestess and harvesting their fluids to ingest as entheogen drugs. And what that golden cup represents is the bodily fluids of the priestess. And how were these fluids used and why? Well, keep in mind this is a young boy with pure DNA. And his flow is, quote unquote, the closest to the creators because it's not tampered with or dirtied in any way. So they use the flow of these children as a method to bring you back to reality when you're high on entheogen drugs. And if you think what I just said is crazy, look into it medically speaking. There's medical connections that say that original primal DNA, when ingested, can take somebody who is experiencing an out-of-body experience and it could bring them back to their bodies. So that's what the fuck is going on. And I just want to double down on that chaos magic aspect, right? Because, so I've showed to you how the whole red heifer thing's a lie. Yet Christians who are trying to find the Antichrist, for example, are looking at this red heifer prophecy as an indicator onto when or where it'll be. However, on the other hand, Israel, the rabbis, are moving along with this red heifer prophecy as if it's actually real. So it's all fake. All of it is a lie. They're making us chase fairy tales and psyops while the real prophecy unfolds. So I just wanted to land on that and hate me later, guys. I'm sorry. Look, I really am sorry. I do know how fucked up this all sounds, and I do know how much hate I'm going to get for it. But if there's one thing you'll appreciate from me moving forward is I will not lie to you, and I will tell you the truths that bother the fuck out of me as well. You know, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but it's not fucking looking like it, unfortunately. So we'll see how it goes. And don't worry, things do get better. And if they don't, always remember, this is all fake, guys. It's television, screen, social media. It's all fake. When you open the door and you step outside, life is fucking beautiful. Never forget that and never let them take away our happiness. Have a great day.